Hey everyone, this is Ethan. Tonight we're looking at the Rams. Before I start, thanks for the views, thanks for the reposting. I really like how on some of the videos there's been a little bit of a back and forth in the comment sections in the YouTube. I saw in the Texans video there's a nice little conversation going on. That's awesome. I love inspiring people to discuss these sort of things because these are valid discussions to have. So, this is my second time recording this video. The first time it actually didn't record all the way. So this time I'm going to focus a little bit more on the trends rather than the players that they're going to pick because I wasn't able to say everything I wanted to say in the first one. So that was actually a blessing in disguise. Anyway, looking at the Rams, I really like the direction they're going. They have a plan, they're going to stick to it, and it's working out pretty well so far. I mean, you got one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL, Sam Bradford, probably going to be the best quarterback in the league in a couple of years. I absolutely adore Sam Bradford. I think he's going to be great. And I'll admit, I wasn't his biggest supporter coming out for the draft. I wouldn't say that I was a huge detractor, but I was a little bit iffy because of the injury. He's proven that he's better and he's durable and he can bounce back from that kind of stuff. So, good job, Sam Bradford. You have a new fan. Anyway, I always sort of thought that Billy Devaney was trying to set his team up like the Colts when they drafted Peyton Manning. And the parallels are actually pretty interesting. The Colts had Manning, of course, at quarterback. They had the veteran running back in Marshall Faulk behind him, who's like this great player, sort of been languishing on a mediocre to bad team for a while. And then he drafts a wide receiver for Marvin Harrison. Or Marvin Harrison was actually drafted right before Peyton came to Indy. But the thing was that in St. Louis it was reversed because they got the number one pick the year after. I mean, you can't really control when you get the number one pick. So I think that they are hoping and praying that Julio Jones or AJ Green slips to 14. And I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately, for them. But I don't think that's a terrible thing in some weird way because it's going to let them get better on defense and possibly get a really nice value pick later in the draft, which I'll get to in a little bit. But talking more about the theory that is used by the Rams staff when they draft players. They don't have a BPA style. They will draft the best player at a position of need available. And that means that need definitely plays into the equation in a large amount. I also know of the four pillars philosophy that Devaney and staff really value character and really value sort of intangible qualities like that. They're not going to take a guy with a ton of baggage. That's why if he slips, Aldon Smith would be a very good pick for St. Louis. However, I don't think he's going to slip. I think that, unfortunately for St. Louis, they're in a bit of a rock and a hard place. They are in a draft without a ton of top-tier talent. There is a large jump from, I would say, 11 overall down. I personally only have around 20 players with first-round grades this year, just because the talent isn't that good. And it's been said by everyone. I'm not the only person saying this, I believe. The talent this year is not up to the snuff from the past drafts. So I think that they may have to reach a little bit on a guy that they like. Right now, the player who I have for them fits their scheme pretty well. Not quite as well as an alternative, and I'm going to talk about the debate between the two of them in a second. But basically, it goes back to Steve Spagnuolo's defensive philosophy and what he sort of promotes, especially on the defensive line. Likes this big space-eating defensive tackles who can both hold their own at the point of attack and also collapse the pocket a little bit. And he likes longer defensive ends who can rush the passer, also come back, gives him a lot to work with, and they need a defensive end pretty badly. And I think that the fact that there won't be a wide receiver available at their pick probably lets them address that position. So the two guys who I have singled out as possibilities for them, and a lot of this also has to do with the fact that they love the ACC, Big 12, and Big 10. Those seem to be their three main conferences that they look at. There are a couple of outliers. South Florida is a pretty specific one just because they seem to not love them. In the Big Ten, they love Indiana, and I have them taking a couple of Indiana guys, at least as possibilities in the mid-rounds of the draft. But looking at where they're going to pick and what they value, the two guys who I have singled out for them for the first round pick are J.J. Watt and Ryan Kerrigan. Right now, at the pick, I have them taking Kerrigan. The reason why I have them taking Kerrigan, even though Watt is a slightly better fit for what they may be trying to do, is that I also think that there is some sort of fear when you are a general manager and you are creating this sort of really fragile environment, especially when you have been mediocre to bad for a pretty long stretch of time. One rocking of the boat can just let it all fade away. It'll all fall apart. And J.J. Watt is a very talented player. I think he can play in a 4-3 defense as a defensive end. I do think he's a bit similar to Chris Long. He's also a bit similar to Adam Carricker. I don't think he's as similar as some people say he is, but I think that that could be a perception for Devaney when he's making the judgment on the pick. And Kerrigan is a bit more complimentary. He fits the scheme just fine. He can be a 4-3 defensive end. I don't think that's much of an issue for him. He's proven he can hold his own at the point of attack, and he's extremely, extremely athletic and has a great motor. I just don't think that they're going to want to take a bigger defensive end again, especially when it failed so spectacularly a couple of years ago and really set them back. Because you can't miss in a first-round pick at this point. You cannot. And Kerrigan is a bit of a safer pick than Watt is at this juncture. So, all things equal, I think that Kerrigan will be BPA, and I think that he will be their pick in the first round at this point in time. Of course, this all changes over time. Other guys who I have eyed for them later in the draft, as I said, this wide receiver, I think that can be an interesting option for Mr. Bradford, is Tandon Doss out of Indiana. And he is going to slip in this draft. I don't know why he's going to slip in this draft. Possibly just because he might be a little bit less athletic than some of the other guys. But they're not going to take Baldwin. They're not going to take Torrey Smith, in my opinion. Doss makes a lot of sense in the third or fourth round. He's big. He's athletic. He can do whatever they need him to do. He's a good fit for the McDaniels offense. I think it could be a pick. I also think Dane Sonsenbacher, if they decide to wait until later, could be a good pick too. James Brewer is a tackle who I think they could kick into guard, and he could be very successful there. I think that some other people who they should look at, Kendall Hunter, they need a speed complementary running back to Steven Jackson. At least Devaney has said so. Hunter is 4-pillar, and he would be a perfect fit for them. Ohio State linebackers, Brian Roll, Ross Holman, two guys who would fit their scheme, fit into their Ohio State sort of theme back there. It just makes a lot of sense to me. I think Roll especially makes a ton of sense in the 6th round or so. He's going to slip because he's small, but he is athletic as heck. If they decide not to take a defensive end early and they take somebody else, Ugo Chinasa out of Oklahoma State or Greg Romius out of Pitt could be interesting later in the draft as projects. I think Romius is going to slip a little bit, but that's just me. Cornerbacks and safeties, Chimdi Chekwa, Marcus Gilchrist. Gilchrist can play either. Chekwa could probably even play either. And Dunta Williams, injury flyer, but he's a first-round, second-round talent. And if he was healthy, he'd be number 1 safety in this draft. Undoubtedly. It wouldn't be close. This is a terrible safety class. It's already been made pretty clear. Dunta Williams would be the cream of the athletic crop. So if he slips, I could see them taking a flyer. At this point, I would be a bit more inclined to take Chekwa or Gilchrist because they can play safety or cornerback, and they would fit the Atogwe role pretty well. So overall, that's about it for the Rams. Interesting team. Please leave comments. Please leave remarks. And spread this around. Tomorrow, we'll do the Dolphins. And the Dolphins have a really fun trend, which we are going to talk about. When you hear it, it may blow your mind a little bit. But that's what I'm here for. So, have a great evening, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.